Okay, so there's a Mordechai Maisa with the Rebbe Reb Zisha. The Heilige Rebbe Reb Zisha, the brother of the Noam Elimelech, the Rebbe Reb Melech. And the Maisa goes as follows. A famous Maisa. We'll start today's subject, with this Gavaldige Maisa. That somebody gave the Rebbe money to get the Rebbetzin a brand new dress. And she was very, very excited. She hadn't had a dress for a long, long time. So she took the money, she went to a tailor, and explained exactly what she was looking for. Measurements were made. It was very, very exciting. She was going to keep it for Yom Tov, whatever it may be, upcoming event. And in those days, it was months and months of work. It wasn't simple to have electric, sewing machines and everything. So after a few months, the date was set that she would go and pick up that dress. The excitement of having a brand new dress, can you imagine? And she goes there, and as she's coming inside, she hears crying. She hears someone really, really crying. So she says, after she comes inside, what was the crying all about? What happened? I heard there was crying. Like, what happened? So the tailor said, I'll tell you what happened. My daughter, said the tailor, just became a color, and she saw me. I was making this new dress. So she came in and she saw me working hard on the dress, and she says, wow, this is gewaldig. Thank you so much for making me this dress for the chasana. This is amazing. I'm so excited. Wow, beautiful. Wow, chasana. And the tailor said, I'm so sorry to break you the news, but it's not for you. It's for one of the customers. And she was so sad. She was crying because she realized that there's no chance of her getting a new dress. It's not going to happen. She was crying. So when the Rebbetzin, Reb Zisha's wife, heard about this, she said, that's it, no way. I want you to take the dress, I want you to give it to your daughter. She should use it for the chasna. I don't want it, I don't need it, I'm okay. She needs it, it's her simcha, and everything. And the tailor's like, really, I can't believe it, thank you so much, that's amazing. She came back, and her husband, the Rebbe Reb Zisha, said, no, well, how's the dress? It fits, it's nice, it came out the way you wanted it. So she was a bit embarrassed in the beginning to say something. But then she said, I'm going to say, she told her holy husband what she had done, the mice of chesed that she has done, the Mesiras Nefesh she had for somebody else, for a kala. And the Rebbe smiled and said, Mordechai. What a Rebbetzin I was zeicher to, beautiful, amazing. I have just one small question for you. Did you pay the tailor? And she says, why should I pay the tailor? I gave him the dress to give to his daughter. It was my material. What do you mean? You know how much that cost? It was a fortune of money in those days. I gave the whole material. Why should I pay? The Rebbe said, you're making a big mistake. You have to pay for the work. You made him work something. You made him do something. You have to pay. There's a Mordechai Chofetz Chaim Rabbi in Avas Chesed in the Akdama to Perek Tes. The Chofetz Chaim writes in Avas Chesed as follows. He says there are so many people that are Anoshim Yishorim, Balei Midois Toivois, real Choshvei Ehrliche Yidden, and the Mekayim all the mitzvahs in the Torah, and the Mekayim all of the other mitzvahs properly in the Torah. But this mitzvah, said the Chofetz Chaim, of paying workers on time is something that unfortunately is very weak. Unfortunately, something that they're just not makbid in. The Chofetz Chaim said, I observe this, and I see that even the Choshvei Yidden, even the Yidden that are makbid in halacha, they're just not being Mekayim these halachas. Continues the Chofetz Chaim. I thought about it a lot, and I realized that it comes because of a chesaron yediyah. Pashat a chesaron yediyah, they just don't know. Meaning, if they would know, avad didn't come halacha properly. But if they don't know, then they're not. And therefore, says the Chofetz Chaim, just like they keep all the other halachas, we have to learn about this halacha, because if we don't keep this halacha, there's a big, big problem, as we will explain. And I must say, we have to understand, before we move on a little bit, today a bit of a hagdama into the sugya. It's a very, very interesting sugya. It's a very common shaila. I mentioned to one of the Choshev B'Bochrim yesterday that I think I'm going to give a share on paying workers on time. And he says to me, I remember one time my boss didn't pay me. It was so hard for me. It was so difficult for me. Right? It's a real thing. When a person has a business, when a person doesn't even have a business, but he's hiring people, things, as we will get to the gedorim of what the malacha is, what the halacha is, a person has to realize that there's a very serious shaila of not paying workers on time. It's a posuk in the Torah. It's a d'oraisa. We'll see exactly in Chazal how many yisurim a person can be over on, but it's something that's unfortunately very common, and we take it very lightly. I didn't pay him today, I'll pay him tomorrow. Big deal. but it's a huge deal in Chazal, and it's a pasuk of the Torah, as we would explain. There's a Moedik Chinuch. The Chinuch a mitzvah Tovkov Peches brings down that the Rabbeinu Shalom B'roiv Chazdai, in the greatness of his chesed, gave us this mitzvah to teach us specifically about the compassion that we have to others when paying people that are very often dependent on us for their parnasa. Now, Avada, no one's dependent on a human being for their parnasa. The Chovos HaLevavos says so clearly in Shara B'Tachan, how Avada it's only the Rabbeinu Shalom and the boss is only a shliach. But I'll call upon him, when someone is waiting for their paycheck in order to come back and buy bread and milk for their kids to eat for breakfast, then they are dependent on you, and therefore you have an obligation to show that chesed, to show that kindness in a very, very big way. And he talks about it, the Chinuch says, Midah Keneged Midah, if we work on ourselves in this inyan and overcome our natural tendencies, maybe to be lazy, maybe to not be so sensitive, then the Rabbeinu Shalom Midah Keneged Midah will also help us and make sure to give us all the generosity and all of the kindness on which we depend on him to give us in our lives. So that is the Moedik Chinuch. There's a makar over here in the Gemara. Let's start with the Gemara, Bab Metzia Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, Bab Metzia Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, Echad Tzre Adam, Vechad Tzre Behema, Vechad Tzre Kelim, Yesh Ba Mishum, Beyoymai, Titein, Schoroi, V'yesh Ba Mishum Loi Tolin. That means, it doesn't make a difference, and maybe in a minute we'll explain exactly the Gedarim of when is it Nageya and when is it not Nageya. Whether you are hiring a human being or utensils, it's all included in the Issa, in the prohibition of not delaying the payment to workers. The makar is in the Torah. It's a pasuk very clearly. Nobody can argue, right? There's no Mefarshim explaining different pshatim in this. This is a clear-cut, simple pasuk. Vayikra Perek Yotes, pasuk Gimel says, Lo yishalem pula sachet radaboika. Do not withhold, loosely translated obviously, do not withhold the payment of the workers. Now we have to understand, at what stage do I need to pay a worker that I am going to be over on the Issa? What type of worker? Does it make a difference if he's a goy? Does it make a difference if he's a child? We'll discuss that. Right, there's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos Agav. Is there a share to this machlok, to this halacha? There's a machlokes Tosfos and the Rambam. If a person gets malchus for this malacha, there's a chakira. Is it be'etzem, just not withholding the payment from the workers, or is it t'nai in paying workers? And if the worker is moichel, maybe it's okay, which we'll get to. How many averis does a person overrun when he withholds the payment of workers? Says the Gemara Bab Metzia Kuf Yud Aleph. Someone that delays the payment of workers is over hey lavim v'asei, 5 lavim and an asei. It's a very serious issue we're dealing with over here. Famous Maisa with the Chofetz Chaim one time right before Shabbos. They saw the Heilige Chofetz Chaim running around Radin. And they said, Rebbe, this is not the way to come into Shabbos Kodesh. Running around, Nazar Oifen, come on. You have to relax, Meruchas HaNefesh, have everything prepared, tablecloth on, ready to go to shul, mikveh versteht sich, all of these things. What's pshat that the Chofetz Chaim is running around? And he said, I just remembered right before Shabbos that I didn't pay one of the workers in the printing press that's printing one of my svarim, and I needed to make sure I go into Shabbos making sure he's being paid. That was what was on the Chofetz Chaim's mind. And there's many, many other mices in this case. The Gemara tells us a very serious punishment. Says the Gemara again, Bab Metzia Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, that when a person withholds payment from worker, and I'm not talking, by the way, just to be very careful, with the disclaimer, we're not talking about stealing. We're not talking about I'm not going to pay him. Of course I'm going to pay him. I'll pay him after Shabbos. Like, what's the difference to him? Like, the difference if he gets it on Friday or Shabbos, or Motzei Shabbos or Sunday? I'm going to give it to him. Avad, I'm going to pay him. We're not discussing with Rishayim. People are not withholding and they're not going to pay. Avad, they're going to pay. Just not now. And there's nafkamina whether you pay before Shkia, after Shkia. There's halachas. Again, we're dealing with an Issa D'Oraisa. So we have to be very, very careful. Just like we'll spend weeks and trying to figure out how to make a lulav kosher because there's a mitzvah d'oraisa on the first day. We're dealing with a d'oraisa over here of when to pay workers. It's crucial to understand the gedarim of this halacha. The Gemara says, Shabbos B'Metzia Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, Kol HaKovis Kasochi Ki'ilu Noitel Nafshoy Mimenu. As it states in the Gemara, it's Ki'ilu took his life from him. The Mefarshim explain, what does that mean? I think I took his life. Whoa, it's like murder. It's like I'm killing somebody. What does that mean? So Pshat, the Gemara says, Kuf Yud Beis and Bab Metzia, the Pshat is that when someone is relying on you for their parnasa, for their livelihood, for their food, for their basic sustenance, and you withhold it from them, that's a terrible thing. And sometimes they feel like, I can't live, I can't eat, I can't go on. It's a very, very, very bad thing. Of course, there are many times that it would be mutter to be able to pay someone late, which we'll get to. When is it mutter? When is it permitted to be able to pay someone late? But that is a very, very important thing. Before we move on, I'm going to have to finish with a couple more shalas, then we'll continue. Is it nageya to a goy? Is it only when I pay a Jew? Or is it even when I pay a goy that there's an issa of baltolin, there's an issa of withholding, delaying the payment? Does it also apply if I have a goyish worker in my house, in my office, in my factory, in my warehouse, and I want to pay him? He's a goy, Seder, a Jew of other have to pay, but a goy isn't negeya too. So here we have to look at the Mishnah in Bamitzir Kufid Aleph Amud Aleph. Ger Toishov, says the Mishnah. Ger Toishov, yesh boy mishum b'yoymei titein schoroi ve'ein boy mishun loy tolin. The Rambam in Hilchas Schiras, Perik Yud Aleph, in the beginning of Halacha Aleph, brings down this Mishnah and says Pashtas only by a Ger Toishov, but we're not talking about a regular goy. And by the way, in the Sefer Mitzvahs of the Rambam, Mitzvahs Aseh, brings down Baltolim Mechayeh, B'chol Scheryoim Bein Nochri Bein Yisrael. Says the Stei Chemed in Chelik Aleph, Marechas Beis, that he says that when the Rambam says Nochri, he meant a Ger Toishov, but not an Akum Mamish, not a regular goy. In the Sefer Chinuch, in Mitzvah Reish Lamed, he brings down, he understands the Rambam as an Akum Mamish. Halacha L'maisa. How do we paskin? Is it applying to a goy or is it not? Rav Elyashiv Zatzal paskin halacha l'maisa that since we do not find any mention of a goy in Shulchan Aruch, therefore, if that's the case, I do not have to be choishish for Shitas HaRambam, and therefore it does not apply to a goy. However, those of you that are well versed in a Moritika Sefer called the Sefer Kavayosha, he brings in Perik Yudalid that if a person withholds payment from a goy, oin shoy godol ma'oid, very, very bad punishment, very severe punishment in that case. And of course, be very careful and wary of Chilul Hashem and Kiddush Hashem, which we spoke about all the way in the beginning, that we always have to be careful in that case. By the way, just to finish off, a cotton is also, right, the Rambam brings down in Schiras Yud Aleph Halacha Vov that a cotton is also included, which by the way, the Chofetz Chaim and Avos Chesed Perek Tes brings down that when it comes to a babysitter, people don't chap. Right? Someone babysits by you, said, I'll pay you tomorrow, I'll pay you at the end of the week. Now again, there are sometimes a terim how to pay people late. But if there's no heta, a cotton would be included in that case. But Ezra Hashem, next year, we're going to discuss what does it apply to and when does it also apply to. Join us then. B'siyat Shmaya. Have a wonderful day.